college football season win totals. It is glorious words to be able to say. And Colby, I know that we were talking about this a little bit off air, but how much has the recent movement in the transfer portal affected the way you've been viewing some of these team season win totals? And have there been a few teams in particular that has really been causing you to either become a little bit more bullish or bearish on?
Well, certainly. I mean, I feel like the college football and basketball landscape, you have to be paying attention nonstop to the transfer portal. And we just saw Michigan State starting quarterback over the past 2 years, back when they had their 11-win season with Mel Tucker. Peyton Thorne hit the portal, and now he's an Auburn Tiger. Also, obviously, Deion Sanders in Colorado have had about, I feel like their whole roster entered the portal, and they've gone out and got guys. So you got to be paying attention to that, and some of it has affected, what I think the teams can do coming into this year.
Yep, absolutely. And how do you view this Colorado bunch? Because as you mentioned, it is now Coach Prime who has taken over there, and this is one of the biggest teams of mystery to me coming into the college football season, as they've got a win total of 3 right now on the board. And I feel like as a Colorado team that they could just completely fart out. They could win like 1 or 2 games, but at the same time, I could see a little bit of a bust out because there are some talented players on this roster.
Yeah, I know it opened up early back when Deion was hired. I feel like January or February at 4.5, and it seemed like the trendy pick was the under. Now it's coming out at 3. I like the over personally, because I think it's still I get it. They 71 different players than last year, and it's probably going to be more by tomorrow morning. But they are much more talented this year than they were last year. And if you look at the schedule, I know it's a very hard schedule. I actually think it's one of the harder schedules in all of college football. They play 11 Power Fives, and the 12th game is a rivalry game in state against Colorado State. So they don't play an FCS. But I think between the Colorado State game, between the potential Nebraska game, Stanford's breaking in a new head coach. Arizona State's got major roster turnover as well. Arizona, I still think, is winnable. So I actually lean over here. It wouldn't shock me at all if they got to 5-6 wins. But at flat 3, I think they're gonna cash the over.
And I think that we've got to bring up this school because they are synonymous with college football. Alabama. I feel like their win total, you need to go over 10.5 on this one. The over, it does cash at a plus 125 if you're taking a look at DraftKings right now. But how do you view Alabama? Because Georgia has become the big bad wolf in the SEC in recent years. By the way, they've got a win total of 11.5. So you need them to go undefeated to be able to cash that one. But in terms of Alabama, do you see this being a little bit of a bounce back year for them? Or do you think that this could be another year where it might be a little bit more teeter-totter-ish for them?
Yeah, I think it's more of the teeter-totter. And I know it's hard to say because of their dominance over the past decade, but they go out and get Tommy Rees as offensive coordinator. Bill O'Brien's now with the Patriots. And, their quarterback problems, Nick Saban's been on record after the spring game. Then they go out and get the kid from Notre Dame that backed up last year, Drew Pine. And I got a lot of concern because you lose Will Anderson, you lose Bryce Young. And if you look back at the season the Crimson Tide had a year ago, they had a lot of close games, more than normal. And you're telling me you're going to lose your best offensive player, your best defensive player. Now, I'm sure the defense will reload, but I don't think you reload with Bryce Young. I actually lean under here because Brian Kelly and LSU are loaded. They have to play the Texas Longhorns, who they should have lost to last year. I thought it was some terrible, terrible refereeing in that game. Now, they get Texas in Tuscaloosa, but there's some other tricky road spots. Remember the last time they played at Texas A&M, they lost. And last year, Texas A&M almost beat them. It came down to the final play of the game in Tuscaloosa. And then you factor in Tennessee, who did beat them, and Tennessee's program, heading in the right direction. I think it makes for a pretty hard schedule. I think if I got to go one way, I think 10-2 is more likely than 11-1.
Yep, I do think that that's such a good point there, as it feels like the rest of the SEC is a little bit better. And our show is always made better by Colby Dant, who does great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's joining me on the Greg Peterson Experience to talk a little college football season win totals. And I always have to bring up this team because I remember back in college, I was over at UW Oshkosh, and our arch nemesis was UW Whitewater, coached by Lance Leipold, who never really lost like any games whatsoever at the D3 level. He has come into Kansas. He has breathed a little bit of life into the program. Can't remember last time we've seen a win total of 6.5 on Kansas, but as we know, it was a little bit of a fast start, a little bit of a slower finish with all the injuries for Kansas. Do they have enough returning to be able to perhaps go over this win total of 6.5?
I think so. I think as long as they can stay healthy, they've been my darlings over the past 2 years. I'm a big fan of Lance Leipold, and I believe in his culture and his coaching. And you got to remember, last year they pretty much were bowl eligible, and then all of a sudden, Jalen Daniels, who was a Heisman candidate at the time, got injured, broke his collarbone. He was out for the rest of the season. Showed up in the bowl game, threw for over 500 yards. He's back. Jason Bean, the experienced quarterback, former North Texas transfer, is back. They go out and get McDuffie, running back from Georgia Tech, who started some games. I think they're going to be even better. They got to stay healthy because Daniels, it really is the oil that makes that engine work. But yeah, I think if you're a Kansas fan, you got to be optimistic. The Big 12, especially this year where you have this 14-team Big 12, it's going to be very exciting. And the drop-off between 1 and 14, I don't think is much. But I still think I trust the culture and I trust the coaching of Lance Leipold.
And you mentioned the fact that the Big 12, and now is 14 schools. They used to be the joke in which the Big 12 only had 10 teams, and the Big 10, for the longest time, they only had 12, and then it became 14, and now you've got just all sorts of hoopla there. It's going to be 16 before it's all said and done within the next few years. But that said, one of those teams that is joining the Big 12, that would be UCF, good old Central Florida. Their win total is 6.5, and they've been a little bit inconsistent in recent years. They've had some great success out there in the American, but it's been a little bit up and down for them. How do you think they make the adjustment to the Big 12, and do you think that they could pull out a winning record to cash this over?
I think they can. I think I lean that way. I need to see what they're going to do at the quarterback position. They had John Rice Plumlee, the Ole Miss transfer. He also plays college baseball, and he was their starting quarterback last season, but he really struggled throwing the ball. So now they go out and they get Timmy McClain, South Florida transfer, who flashed at times. But after watching spring, I see Plumlee with the ones. That leaves me a little bit concerned. But Gus Malzahn's a proven winner, and that home environment, it's that strange trip now. It used to be West Virginia. It seems like it's going to be UCF now because it's the furthest away from every other school. That might be an advantage. I think I lean over. They do have a tough game at Boise. The Smurf Turf is always a tough place to win. But I think I lean over at this very moment.
And John Rice Plumlee just sounds like someone who's about like 107 years old. I don't know why. It just sounds like an old-timey name, and I'm here for it. So there is that. And got to ask you about one more team. That would be the Texas Longhorns. Are they back to cashing overs on season win totals at a 9.5?
I can't do it. I know the roster's loaded. I just can't do it. When you add in the motivation that they're leaving the Big 12 this year, which, remember, they haven't won a Big 12 championship since the Bush administration, I feel like. So they have a road game at Alabama. So if you factor that in as a loss, then they can only lose one other game, and probably the Red River Shootout with Oklahoma. But don't forget that TCU's had their number. They're 8-3 against Texas since joining the Big 12. Oklahoma State's had their number. And then you add in a fact that they got to play Houston, who they never would schedule before. So Houston's going to be just waiting for that opportunity. I understand Texas is the most talented team, in the Big 12 from a recruiting standpoint, but I got to go the side of it. Give me the under on the Longhorns.
I agree. And Colby, I know that you do great work at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Always appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Can't wait for the season.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.